On today's episode, we're discussing a 1909 classic, two schools that are beloved by fans of Hardwood History. It's a battle of the Titans, Villanova versus UConn for the 1995 Big East Championship. We'll break down the coaches, players, uniforms, and elite gameplay. Now, on to the show.
Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game. Inside that three-point line, it's all theirs. Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Bring it into the 19-9.
Welcome to the 1909 podcast. I'm here with my weekly contributor, Robert Wire. I am your host, Aaron Meyer. We're talking about the Big East Championship from 1995, Villanova versus Connecticut. All right, let's jump right into this game. Earlier this season, Villanova ended Connecticut's streak. They've got they were number one for the first time in school history, and they get absolutely smashed by Villanova. Kerry Kittles has got 37 points in this game. It was a 27-game home court winning streak. Steve Lapis, the head coach for Villanova, was absolutely exhilarated by that win. And this is kind of a chance to a revenge game for UConn, but it doesn't turn out that way. So I was just curious, what were your impressions coming into this game? Had you seen this before, and just what were your thoughts?
I had not seen it before. I thought at the beginning of the game, I was like, man, UConn just came out to play. They're ready to go. And then the wheels just fell off.
Yeah, it's such a classic college basketball game. You know, I think that I recognize it so much more now watching games where you talk about it, maybe even from like a more of a coaching perspective, where there's 4-minute chunks where you're just like, you have to either stay close or expand on your lead. And, the first half is just amazing gameplay, back and forth, both teams just hitting shots. But that second half, that first stretch, and we're going to get to the cutaway, talking about that later, but it's unbelievable how quickly things got away from UConn in this game.
Yeah, I agree. It seemed like as talented as UConn was, they just couldn't get it together in this game, and Villanova just looked like they were just unstoppable.
See, I didn't feel that same way. I thought that UConn, especially on the boards, just seemed like they were in control in the first half. And I've got our 19-9 moment here, so we're gonna hit that right off the bat. It was Ray Allen in the first half. So let's give a little listen to this moment, the 19-9 moment.
Great. Allen, yes, three-pointer. 29-20, back to their largest lead.
I had to get in a Ray Allen three-pointer in there right away, but he just pulls up. It's that sweet stroke. He looked in control in the first half. Kittles, I have to ask you this question off the top. So, pound for pound, does he have the biggest strides of anyone in basketball history? It's got to be between him or Giannis. When that guy's running down the court, the length of his strides, I'm always amazed to watch that.
It is pretty impressive. I thought that I would say the Greek Freak's got longer strides. He's a little bit taller, but pound for pound. I mean, it's close.
Okay.
But I mean, Kittles in this game was just phenomenal. I mean, I don't think there's any question watching this game. I know that Ray Allen had the better career long term, but in this game, he was by far the best player on the court. He's defense, offense. He did it all. I mean, he was just, to me, it was no question who was the best player on the team.
I just thought UConn looked destined for the Final Four, even coming into this first half. And I think this Villanova team they had their number. There's something about this Villanova team, whether it was Kittles or maybe just that they rung their bell, and like a prize fighter, you never quite get it back after they stun you in that 37-point blowout.
I think that's what it was. I mean, they had so much confidence, from the blowout that even when they got down early, maybe that would have affected other teams. But they felt like, well, we've already, beat them pretty badly, that we can come back easily. And I mean, they got some shooters, that's for sure. I mean, watching that last game we watched and now this one, man, there were some sharpshooters that I just didn't remember about. I mean, Kittles, more and more I watch him, the more and more I'm impressed. I just don't know how. I mean, I guess it was the injuries is why he didn't, have the career that he was destined for in the NBA. But man,
I can't believe how short it was. That when we did that redraft, that was the thing that was shocking to me, was how short his career was. He had some good years though. He was on that one of those Nets teams that went to the finals and had some quality years. But like you said, I think that injury just robbed him of that his athleticism.
I mean, what couldn't he do? Like watching this game, I mean, he did it all defensively.
Really good shooter.
I mean, his shot was like pure as it gets. Like,
I think he's
super
underrated
fast.
as a shooter. That's a weird thing, because he shot over 40% in the NBA too, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that just doesn't, like, because he was athletic and like such a guy that was good in transition, doesn't maybe get the credit as a shooter.
And I mean, back then, I think that it wasn't as big of a deal when you were that great shooter. Like, I think that like today it would have been more brought out. He probably would have shot 10 threes a game, and like it would have been like, this guy's the next.
Yeah.
Probably if it was now, it'd be the next Ray Allen. Right? But you get what I mean.
Yeah.
He just super impressed me. I still can't get over how good he was.
See, now it's funny when you have that impression, I think, because the second half, or the end of the first half and the second half kind of combine into almost an entire half of basketball where Villanova dominated, and that's really where the game was won. But the game doesn't start out that way. For the first 15 minutes, the UConn's up. They're actually up 35-29, and just looked in control. And so it's that 3:14 at the end, basically from 3:14 mark of the first half to the 4:57 of the into the second, where Villanova outscores UConn 30-7. So they go on a crazy run. So they're up by 1 at halftime, but really they never lost that momentum, and it's kind of incredible.
It is incredible because UConn had really good players. So, I mean, that
was an unbelievable team.
To go on a run, a 17-0 run, when you have Kevin Ollie and Ray Allen and, was it Travis Knight?
Yep.
Right? And then the other guy, I didn't remember
Donnie
him,
Marshall.
but he looked, was it Flair? Is that what his name? I mean, he looked really,
he was
his shot,
shooter too.
He looked kind of like Ray Allen. Sometimes I had a double take because the quality of the game.
Same shoes on too. He had those the Air Max 2 up tempos.
The quality of the game film wasn't the greatest.
No.
So, like, I really had to take a double take to make sure that it wasn't Ray Allen when he shot the ball.
He was splashing him.
His form and everything was really nice. So, I mean, as loaded as they were, it was a shock to me that they couldn't score for.
Yeah, Brian Fair, not a name that I remembered, but man, his shot was pure.
It did. It was.
He was dropping them. So I think that it was weird, and Ray Allen says it. So there's a quote from him. He said, "We just broke down from point guard to center," and it really did seem like that. There was something where they mentally broke, and this is one of those things that I always harp on. Coaches, when they don't take good timeouts, but Calhoun took timeouts too, right when they were called for. It was like they went on a mini run, timeout, and then it was like they went on another timeout. And he's trying to get and he runs a set play out of that. And I think he even got, if I'm not mistaken, out of one of the timeouts, they got a good three or a really good shot.
Yeah,
and it just didn't seem to matter where they just couldn't gather momentum.
It kind of felt like maybe I think when they went the 17-0 run, and they come out, and then Ray hit a three, and I thought, well, maybe now they're going to make a push. Villanova responded. I think maybe Kittles hit a three right after that or something, some of that nature.
Yeah.
But what I felt like in the game, though, that really impressed me was the play of that number 40, Hornegay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The good thing I heard about in the broadcast was that he was going to go to the CBA.
Yeah.
And he decided
back.
the last minute not to do it, and he set out for 2 years.
Yeah.
But to me, I thought he was just as big a part as Kittles in this game for the fact that he was able to get inside and he made really good passes to Lawson and set him up.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Lawson was unbelievable too.
But he was set up in the position to score many times, and I felt like that's something that you hardly see in today's college basketball is the interior passing of that level. And
there's no emphasis to do that,
anything,
right?
But UConn was as much rebound as they got. They didn't have them kind of passes to set them up for layups. I just felt like, as far as a total team effort for this one game, Villanova just had the total package, right? They could do the inside. Kittles was on fire on the outside. And the other guy, what was his name? Ebrunk or
Ebrams. Yeah.
I thought, he definitely has the green light, right? These guys from Villanova, there was no question if they were open by a hair, they were pulling that trigger.
Isn't it amazing how balanced teams were at this time?
I know.
To think about you just aren't dependent on that star. Like the big time teams are not dependent on that one transcendent star. They've got lots of guys that are really, really good.
Well, it is amazing. But at this time, Kittles was a star.
He was.
But these other guys were
But you've got other
perfect
pros.
role players that were pros.
Yeah.
But they were willing to do their role. They didn't have to be the star,
thing,
right?
That's the weird thing.
The greed wasn't there as it is today. It's all about the points, try and make your brand get bigger so you can get drafted, right?
Well,
that's what Calipari does every year at Kentucky, right? He tries to talk these guys into playing together,
Yeah.
But, it's just watching these games. It just throws you back to what basketball is really supposed to be played, right?
Yeah, I would argue push back against that a little bit, but I think that as far as the idealized version of college basketball, because they didn't pull those players, I think it would look like this now if the NBA if they weren't doing this in the NBA. It felt like watching a pro game. These guys were pros.
Well, yeah, but they stayed 3 or 4 years.
Exactly,
that doesn't happen now.
It doesn't, and but I think that it's just we tend to think this couldn't happen in college anymore, but I think it would if the guys stayed. It's just that the money in the pros, because they don't pay you in college, and the money in the pros has grown I don't know if it's exponentially, but has grown unbelievably since then. You can't pass. No one would.
Yeah, well,
there's no way you would. Ebrams would have been in the NBA.
Yeah. The difference is today there might be 4 NBA players on a team, but they're not going to be seniors and juniors, right? They're going to be maybe 3 freshmen or 2 freshmen, or maybe 2
The only way it would be is that if they're freshmen. I don't think
where this team. Ollie was a senior. Ray was a sophomore, right?
Yep.
And
he comes back for his junior year.
Travis Knight, what was he? Probably a sophomore.
Yep, sophomore.
And who was the other one that was an NBA player on this team?
Donnie Marshall goes to the NBA. I think Lawson.
He was foul trouble most of the game.
Cup of coffee.
So he didn't do a whole lot in this game.
So you had in there a note about the press, and I was going to ask too. So we've talked a little bit about the press, watching some of these old games. Why do teams not? I'm going to keep bringing it up until teams start to press more, because especially now that the shot clock is shorter. Throw a 2-2-1 out there. What are they doing?
I think the reason is because, and that was something I wanted to bring up about this game too, is the way the game is played now. You can't touch them on defense, right? Or it's automatic foul.
Okay,
the press works so good because you could trap them in the corner and almost body them, right?
But it's two different reasons. So you're talking about a press to get turnovers. I'm talking about the shot clock now is 30 seconds. So why not just throw a 2-2-1 out there, take 10 seconds off the shot clock? You're rushing the other team. These teams, IU can't get set up in their offense in 30 seconds. Why? If you give them 20 seconds, good luck.
Yeah, but maybe they get it over your press and they get an easy layup.
But you could do a soft press. You don't have to again, you're talking trying to trap them. That's when you could break for a layup. Yeah. If you're just slowing them down, and you're angling them down.
Didn't UConn do their 2-2?
Yeah, that's what I'm
saying. They fell back into man.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, someone tell me why I'm wrong.
Maybe the players don't do it that much in high school anymore.
They might not.
Before, maybe that was something they did, so that it wasn't that hard to teach them that. To where now it's they come into college and maybe they're just, they're just trying to teach them. Do you think AAU does presses?
Well, I don't
can't
know.
imagine they do.
Well, I don't know. It's just that's a little bit different, just because
that's where they get most of their gameplay now.
And you're showcasing, so that's really to showcase offensive ability, because that's what's going to get you recruited, right? Is your offensive ability, not ability to play defense. But I'm saying, once you're a college coach, you have control. Somewhat, you have control. Well, you do. You're the highest paid person in the state.
Is a kid going to want to come? Control. Is a 5-star kid going to want to come to a school that's big about defense, or that's going to be hey, we want you to save your energy and play offense?
They're going to come to a school that's going to win. I'm saying that this is going to help you win.
The brand thing is bigger than winning sometimes with these kids. If you say, hey, we're going to throw you down the post, and you're going to take over, they're going to say, hey, we're going to have you out there running the floor, playing defense. playing defense is one thing, but pressing the whole game, like if you're a point guard, like, and you're trying to make yourself go to the league, like you're not going to pressing people by full court
no.
pressing.
I'm saying like I'm talking about the two.
Down.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about like the 2-2-1 press. I mean, I'd like to see press of any kind, but I'm talking about like the soft press that you fall back where you're just eating clock. Like I don't understand. I mean, you get guys who are taking charges still in college. Like why? I mean,
I think I see some of that.
That's way crazier.
I see some of that in
pressing.
the NBA or in the college where they pick them up maybe 3/4 and just kind of like force them to go a little bit slower, and they go across the line at like 22 seconds.
It feels like in this game though they did it all. The entire game.
It just didn't work
they don't
because
ever stop.
Villanova, I think it was part of it was because they were running so much.
Yeah.
And then the other part is they just had good enough guards that it didn't matter, right? They were smart enough not to try to force anything and get stuck. And I think that was, I mean, it obviously worked during the season for him, it just didn't work for him in this game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it works after this, too.
It had no, this game reminds me of the press that Georgetown tried to do the last game we talked against was it UMass? Yeah.
UMass.
And it didn't matter. But that press worked a lot probably during the season.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for that game because the players were smart enough.
But I don't think like in another game, if they play that game 10 times, I would, if I'm Georgetown, I wouldn't not press because it didn't work in that game.
No, they're going to do it because that's what they did all season.
And I just think but I think that works, right? Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, you do.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to play. And now you've got players who are less experienced than they were back then. I just think it would probably work more. Like these guys have barely played.
Do you think a coach is going to take the chance of, like, say it was Allen Iverson now, take a chance at him getting fouls and losing him for the game for a press? I don't know. I mean, there's just so many different variables now with these players. It's not like when we were playing and they would be like, you're going to do what we tell you to do or you're going to sit the bench, right?
Maybe not.
Now they have to deal with egos because of the AAU circus.
You're telling me these guys didn't have egos back in the day?
Well, they did, but I felt like...
Especially if you're there for 3 years, you definitely have an ego.
People weren't transferring nearly like they were now.
No, well, there's different rules.
Now there's like, hey, if you were going to like force me to do this and I don't want to do it, I'm out.
Maybe.
Like, when you recruited me, you said you're going to do this and this, and now you're not doing this, so I'm out.
Yeah, I'd like to hear.
I mean, it happens a lot. Transferring happens almost every team every year, right?
All right, let's get one more, and then we're gonna hit some of these categories. You talked about winning the conference tournament. Like, did it mean more? What did you mean by that? What was in your head?
I just thought that back then the Big East was a huge deal to win the tournament, right? I just don't know in today.
And this was the first Big East title for Villanova, too.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a big deal for them, right? Like, this was like, I want to say almost like a championship for them. It was a championship, but like almost like a big run of the tournament. Like, where now I feel like.
So you're saying maybe like in Indiana, that winning the sectional title used to be before like class basketball, right? Like that's the championship.
You know, like it would have been, where now it's like if you win it, is it really that big a deal?
I still think it's a big deal. So maybe I'm thinking.
I just don't.
I love like Big Ten titles. I think it's a huge. If we won the Big Ten this year, tell me you wouldn't be blown away.
No, I would be excited if we won it, but I wouldn't be like, you know what we'd say as soon as it's over?
We didn't win the national championship.
We would say, how far do we make it in the national? You know, because if I was like,
how far
you acted. If Archie would win the Big Ten thing and lose the first round, you'd be like, wow, he won the Big Ten championship. Look at him.
No, hang on. No. I love Big Ten championships.
Tom Crean won the Big Ten, just overall Big Ten.
I loved him.
You did, but a lot of people, that wasn't good enough. Like,
no,
it's all about the
championship
tournament.
culture.
It's not.
I mean, people talk about that with LeBron. They hold it against him. Like, oh, he's not 6 for 6, and he's been to 10 finals now.
I mean, how many awesome teams were in this tournament?
So many.
You know what I mean? Like,
even UConn. So UConn,
Georgetown.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's just a lot of amazing teams. Let's
hit some of the categories. So let's talk about the big picture context here, because UConn loses this game, so they get bounced from they probably put a number 1 seed in the East. They get bounced to the West Coast as the 2 seed. They end up going all the way to the Elite 8 and then lose to that. They meet the eventual national championship. They see that UCLA Ed O'Bannon team in the Elite 8 and lose to them. And it's just like, I mean, there's so much luck involved in winning a national championship. Like that just random matchup that Villanova's not good again. You know, they're better against UConn. And then again, Villanova, they get bounced in the first round. They lose in the first round to Tennessee, Chattanooga.
I mean, do you think if you were the Villanova fan back then and you won that tournament, it was a big deal, but if you got bounced the first round of the number 14 seed, that you wouldn't have been like, what is going on?
Oh, I would have been disappointed. Of course, you're going to be
You've been
disappointed.
devastated, right?
Yeah.
You just beat UConn.
Yeah. Oh, I
You know,
definitely
like-
would have had high expectations going into the tournament, but they lose. That's a triple overtime game, so it just is like a weird game.
Still a number 14 seed, man.
No, 15
15 seed? Oh,
no, 14. You're right. Yeah, but so either way, 100%. I would have been
devastation.
Yeah, one of the worst. One of the worst
that team
losses
was
in
phenomenal
tournament history.
too. I mean, that's
Oh yeah. No doubt about it. And that's just one of the worst losses in NCAA history. Biggest upsets, I'd say.
So I mean, the question is, what if Villanova would have lost and they wouldn't have played them the first round? Maybe if it was the opposite way, maybe they would have made a run.
They might have.
Maybe that would have woke them up. But maybe they were so high from beating UConn, they thought they were unstoppable, and they didn't have to show up for that number 14 seed.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I think that it's just sometimes it's hard to either, I don't know, it's hard to figure it out, but there's so much luck involved in winning a national championship. You just assume that it's about just the talent, and sometimes it's just the best team. If you can assemble enough talent, you're going to win. Like Kentucky is, the next year where they're unbelievable.
Oh,
and that UCLA team that UConn loses to, I mean, maybe even if they are in the East and end up in the Final Four, they still used to lose to that UCLA team because that team is good. I mean, O'Bannon that year. I mean, Toby Bailey was out of his mind. Like that team.
It just takes so much to win.
That team was unbelievable.
Injuries, matchups. It's as easy as your best player getting banged up and it's only at 75% the next game and.
For sure.
That's all it takes.
All right, let's talk a little design corner. So I showed you the Nova shorts that are going to be back on 19.9 soon, I believe, or will be back at least in the future. The Kittle shorts that they get called sometimes. Little background on those shorts. Villanova spent $20,000 in the offseason to come up with a new logo. I love it. Alvin Williams, the point guard on this team, still hates those uniforms. So I'm curious what you think of them. I personally love them.
If you listened to the podcast before, we had the debate before what shorts we'd pick between Georgetown and UConn, and I picked Georgetown because I'm like the unique shorts. So obviously, I would be extremely
Nice.
into these just because they're not. And the more I watched the game, the more I was like, man, those are just awesome.
They're just
because it was
fun.
just so different. Like
know.
It just like back then, like. You just didn't get very many shorts that were very different. Now, I did see a pair of shorts that 19.9 should get whenever they put us in this split screen. They should get the Razorback shorts.
Oh man,
with Williams on the team.
Corliss Williams. Man, what about those Kentucky?
I know
the cat scratch.
Yeah,
ones.
they were good too.
Those are cool too.
I saw both of those and I was thinking, we got to talk about that as soon as we get done. We'll get to that point.
You brought it up. I want to talk about this.
That was just devastating.
Furious.
Game.
Oh
my God.
So Kentucky and Arkansas go into overtime in the SEC championship game, which we probably need to rewatch at some point. But they cut away and they put this game in the little corner, no audio, and go directly for a long time. This isn't like
5-6 minutes.
Yeah, this isn't like 30 seconds left. We're watching the other game. And by the way, this is during the key stretch of the game when Villanova goes on their 17. I'm watching Kittle's dunk on this little teeny screen, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm tuning into the Big East championship.
I was so mad. I was like, okay, that's great. Because normally, like, when I remember them doing stuff like that, it was maybe like a buzzer beater or maybe like 30 seconds on the clock. I mean, this was like 4 minutes to go.
Or during a timeout from the other
They would
team.
go away and at least they would play a little bit of audio. Like the bad part about this split screen is the quality wasn't that great anyway. And then once you put it in the split screen and you're trying to watch half of it and you can't hear no audio, so it's like you're kind of trying to make it out what they're doing. And like Villanova's doing like this unbelievable stuff and you're just like, can you please turn back this game?
Yeah.
And they just kept talking about.
Just kept going.
I was like, come on.
Like
are you showing
they're
free
shooting
throws?
free throws, yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
I was
Turn
dying.
it off already.
I was dying.
But
in the little corner, Kittles is going up for a monster two-hand dunk, and you're like clanking free.
Yeah, it was just
Walton
horrible.
McCarty's clanking free throws.
But we'll talk about that later when we come down to the bottom.
Yeah.
About the things that carried over.
Let's talk a little bit any other design things. I mean, I love the UConn uniforms. I love my personal favorite shoes were the Max 2 up tempos that Ray Allen has.
I looked those up and I do like them, but the ones he wore, I think the following year, the total air pockets around, them were like,
those are iconic.
I had the Pippins.
Yeah.
And like them were one of my favorite shoes of all time.
Yeah.
So like
they're great.
I would have went with those over these, but at the time there wasn't very many shoes with air pockets.
No.
So these were like the start of it.
We're going to have to get into it because I think UConn sneaky might be the best shoe game in college basketball history. Just throwing it out there. I mean, they've got some iconic shoes even going on past this. Like Rip Hamilton had some sweet ones.
What about North Carolina?
I know. I'm just saying it's up for debate. We'll get into it later. Let's talk about some of our favorite game moments or plays of the game. Calhoun says about that run, they just exploded. It's hard to explain even what happened when you see Carey and three other blue shirts dunking the ball. That's not it. So let's listen to a little audio from that time. This is right when the cutaway comes back to the game. This is what we were missing.
Amazing, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is why they call it March Madness. Let's go back to Jim Nance and Billy Packer.
Thank you, Pat. This phenomenal weekend continues. And Kittles and Villanova have scored 17 unanswered.
And welcome back to the game. Thanks, guys, for that. Right into a timeout. Unbelievable. Kittles throws it down there and just like, and we're at a timeout. So,
and we're back.
Yeah.
And he just dunked it. Now we're in timeout.
But we did get to see that Kittles dunk, and it is awesome. He's got those giant strides into a huge two-handed dunk, and pretty awesome.
Like I've said before, I can't say it enough how awesome he was in this game.
For sure. So much fun. Do you have anything else for your game moments?
No, like I said before, really mine was I was just super impressed with the interior passing. And I mean, obviously, Kittle's shooting, but that's the kind of thing that I was surprised. I really thought going into the game that UConn was going to have the better big men. Like for the game.
Well, they led. The funny thing is, they did have the better. They didn't play better because Lawson has his the game of his career in the Big East Championship. But the stat that they throw out there, a little nerd corner here, is that UConn led the Big East in rebounding and Villanova was dead last. So that's a pretty big disparity, and it certainly didn't feel like that. Although UConn did rebound well in this game, I thought.
They did.
And I think they might have even out rebounded Villanova. But they certainly compensated enough with their interior play in this game, at least.
Well, they did mention, though, that Villanova, I don't know which player it was injured a part of the season.
Yeah.
So it made a big difference when they came back.
For sure.
So the stats were a little bit skewed because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, this is going to be one of our reoccurring segments. I've got a little audio for us this time, so enjoy the audio break, and we'll get back to talk. We're going to talk about would this game have been better with Bill Walton on the audio.
And Bill, we're at Stanford today, and we've got the game of the millennium tonight.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Learn to love your job, love pressure. Let's go.
I think can succeed here. Barack Obama. I don't think he's going to coach. So
well, you keep saying that, but why? Why are you so negative? Why do you just turn down? Party on. It's a wonderful day. It's Oregon. The sun was out. Come on.
Would this game have been better with Bill Walton on the call?
I think that you have in the notes there, and I do agree with this, that the most exciting part of the game was when they went on the 17-0 run.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, but I'm going to say in this game, Bill Walton would have made it better.
Yes.
I'm going to have to agree. I mean, I'm not the hugest Bill Walton fan. I like Bill, but man, he just has these, like this stuff we listen to. Like, it's just like, you don't know what the guy's going to say. And sometimes you don't even know what he's talking about because he probably doesn't even know what he's talking about. But at least he's entertaining most of the time.
Yeah, Billy Packer, I think the call, I was looking for the call of the game. Here's the call of the game. You didn't see that run coming, and my notes were, no kidding, we were watching the Kentucky-Arkansas game. So I think he would have been perfect in this game, though, just to tell a story there at the end. It gets a little bit kind of not out of hand, but it's clear that it's one of those games where they're down big now after that big Villanova run, and they come back and cut it to 6 points. But it was one of those games where you could tell that the effort that UConn had to put together to come back from that deficit, they didn't have enough to get over the hump. Like, they were just gassed by that. Ray Allen shoots a couple of threes that end up short, and like if Ray Allen's shooting short threes, it's just it's kind of over at that point. I think Deron Sheffer hits that 3 to get it to 6, but I never really felt that they had a chance to get over the hump and take the lead again. It just seemed like
much.
Every time they did, Villanova would come down. I think Lawson had a and one 3-point play right after that.
After that 3.
Yeah, just balanced it out. So it was just it wasn't meant to be. You got anything else on the announcer calls?
Yeah, I was gonna mention the other 19-9 school, Gonzaga. They were talking about how they were going to make the tournament run. I caught that when they were in the announcement, and I thought that was pretty neat that was like the first year they
very first time they make the tournament.
They talked about it in the thing.
Yeah,
as much
crazy.
as we like to talk about.
Shout out to Casey Calvary, who was on here from the 1999 team. The first time they made kind of noise in the tournament. So
amazing podcast.
It is. He's an interesting guy. We're gonna get him back on to do one of these rewatches maybe. All right, let's go to the last one. What aged the best? I've got the first one. I said Kevin Ollie. Literally, he looks exactly the same. It's amazing. And shout out to him for taking care of himself.
I thought when I was watching the first half of the game about Kevin Ollie, I felt like in the first half, like he was the perfect leader of a basketball team. I know the second half he wasn't. He didn't do a whole lot, but the first, I just thought he had command of the game more than any other player on the UConn's team. For me, that's what it felt like. He was defensively, he was there. He got the ball where it needed to go. Because he used to have those leaders on teams, and you could tell who he was, and you could tell like he was the leader of that UConn team. To me, that's what it felt like the first half.
I like it. So the other two things, a couple more I had. I love that old Garden logo, the Madison Square Garden logo. Super cool looking. I should have put that in design corner. And then coming off screens to shoot threes. That's a weird thing that you don't see a lot. That Ebers guy was amazing at it. Like, would run full speed off a screen and be ready to shoot a 3. They don't really do that anymore because all the offenses are drive and dish. So you're just kind of standing there waiting for the ball rather than having to move and do that like kind of weird pivot, where you plant your foot and elevate.
I saw it though. I saw it the last IU game. You didn't see it?
Yeah. Who?
Franklin faked like he was going to run back to the screen and
oh,
came
really?
back.
Did a little V cut, huh?
He did a V cut and was wide open and went straight up and drilled it.
Missed it, but he shot amazing. If we could play every game in Banker's Life, we would be the number one team in the country.
No, the other one was in Bloomington. He hit 5 or 7.
Well, no, I'm saying the last two Crossroads Classics.
I agree though that you don't see it very often now. Today's game is more about the pull-up 3 than the off-the-screen, pivoting your foot, catch the ball, you're going into it. Like the Reggie Miller type.
Reggie
3.
Miller, exactly.
That's what Reggie and Ray back in the day. Like it just isn't like that anymore. Like, I mean, you may see Curry or maybe Klay Thompson every once in a while.
Even then, they're more off the dribble.
No, Klay
a little bit.
Clay's that one game he only dribbled 3 times and hit like 17, whatever.
But he's getting off driving dishes though too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got one more. I want to shout out to George Raveling. This wasn't in the halftime show. I wish it would have been. He was with Coach K. That was the other guy in the halftime show with Coach K in the last one we watched, and he's unbelievable. He got the 5-star connection. So he was a coach that went to the 5-star camp, did speeches. Really amazing guy. Was the first black player for Villanova and the first black coach for Nova. Total stud, total storyteller. From what I heard, I hope that on that podcast that they release someday for 5-star, that some of his stories and just like coaching segments are on there. Really interesting guy. So wanted to note that as well. And what age the best. Would have loved to hear just more of that guy talking because super interesting guy.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about what aged the best was I do think the split screen aged better. Like it aged.
Oh,
like
it got
now
better.
It got better. Back then though, it did age because now they just do it better. Like they would have put the other screen a littler while they were shooting 3 throws, and they would have put the audio probably would have always been on
for sure. Or
like
or just for the
run,
last
they might have
2
just
seconds.
sent it over.
Yeah,
and
they
said,
would have.
We'll come back to that game in a second if they come back. Like this is an unbelievable. Like they would have never did what they did.
So the idea of the split screen has aged better. Although now it's probably gone because you can just do like side by sides or whatever. You can watch I can watch 4 games at once on ESPN on the app. Right, I can pull them off. Why would I want a split screen?
That's a lot
now?
for me though.
Oh man, I'm just saying. No, I know. I'm just saying, like unnecessary to do it.
They
now.
might do that like in March Madness.
Like we only had 4 channels in 1995.
Yeah.
Like you needed the split screen.
What they probably would do now actually is they'd probably wait till commercial.
Yeah,
and then they might pull the others
for a minute.
They would show you like
in.
a segment.
Exactly.
Just a little bit.
And they'd make sure that it wasn't during.
Yeah, they would never do a 17-0
definitely cutting
run.
back. Yeah, at some point. All right, man. You got anything else?
I don't think I got anything else.
All right. Well, we got another one coming up. A couple more podcasts coming up for the holiday break. We've got kind of a check-in with the 19-9 guys, just talking about the year in review that'll be running, and then we're going to do an old IU game with Josh while he's on vacation. MSU and IU with that Kurt Haston bomb. Did you watch that game?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah,
I've watched about all.
I was there.
I have to watch it again to remember.
You can hear my recap of the game from being in the stands and rushing the court. So, all right, man. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the 19-9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. It helps keep us going. We also have links to all of 19-9's social media so you never miss a release. Until next time.